born and raised out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's no shortage of like spooky kind of historical places out there. A lot of history, which kind of leads itself into like the paranormal research that you kind of do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did your background at all in that area lead you to looking this stuff up, or were you ever interested in this stuff growing up?
Not really. No. I didn't really get interested until I was in my early 20s. I mean, I suppose I had like a minor interest in UFOs, but nothing special. And what actually happened was I just went to the local like a social club, and I was sitting on the swing waiting for the pub to open, and I just happened to look over to the left, and I saw this guy standing in the middle of the field dressed as a monk, and I was like, what's that? So at first I started shouting at him for a laugh, and then he didn't respond. He just stood there like a statue. And then I had a laser in my pocket, so I put a laser beam on him, and it hit his chest and his face, or basically like he had a hood up. It was all black, and I put a laser right in his face, and still no response. So I just got up and started walking towards it, and I got within like 10 or so feet of it, or about 10 feet, and it just disappeared. And I'd never seen anything like that before in my life, and it just kind of intrigued me. And then I actually went to the social club itself, and I said, I just think I saw like a monk or something across the field. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that's the mad monk. He haunts here." And
They knew all about it.
No, I never knew about it at all. And after that, I mean, that's what kind of woke me up, because although it didn't scare me at all, really, I didn't really know what it was I was looking at. It started kind of bugging me, because I kind of wanted to try and figure out what I was looking at or what's going on. And it just kept on bugging me. And in the end, my day job is basically databases, and a lot of things were reverse engineering and stuff like that. And
really?
It's like, I was like, okay, well, let me just have a go at to see if I can figure this out, And so I picked on a place called 30 East Drive, which is the most haunted, most violent poltergeist in the UK. And I've invited professors to come. I've invited debunkers to come, some very famous ones, and they all refuse. So I ended up going in there. And back in 2015, I really made an effort of it, and I kind of identified the root cause of it, or at least I came up with a working model of what was happening. And then the book came out, and then since then it's been going from strength to strength, and more people have been testing my stuff, and more things happen, and it links to other stuff, and it keeps on growing. And now it's what I kind of figured out back in 2015 is now being seen all over the world, pretty much on a weekly basis.
When you say it's been seen, you're referring to the Sphere Network.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that from the paranormal? And I do agree. Like every few weeks, there's a new video of like 3 spheres flying around. It's like, oh, Patrick was right again.
So what it is when I was doing my studying, I noticed the poltergeist activity is computer-like. It keeps repeating the same patterns in the same places as well. You can actually trigger it as well. You just have to know the right parameters, and you can trigger poltergeist activity multiple times a night. And I've done demonstrations of that. It's all in videos on my Twitter or X, and I've got it all on CCTV, and it's all there. And what I figured out was there's actually these small little drones, like what I call Type 3 spheres. And they're literally the size of baseballs. They're tiny. They're literally like this. And people see them in the buildings all the time. In fact, I was there last week or two, and we got CCTV camera footage, IR camera. And you see one flying through the ceiling and does a U-turn and does a spiral and goes back up again. And then you can see this actually in the camera above, which is in the bedroom, and you can see it flying around in the bedroom. So it can actually go through walls and stuff. This is what was observed during World War II with the Foo Fighters. It's exactly the same process. It's called quantum tunneling. Other people call it transmedium and stuff like that, but it's effectively where a solid object can go through a solid barrier. and come through the other end.
They called this ball lightning.
Yeah, it's been
Back in the day.
misidentified as ball lightning. Yeah,
But
it's
in
because
World War II, I mean, they started
well,
going
no.
planes.
The ball lightning emits atomic light. Atomic light is when you have a high energy source in a gas environment, which energizes the gas molecules, which then produces photons, which is atomic light. It's a very pure kind of light. You know, the only difference is that in nature there is nothing that is stable or constant. It's in a constant state of flux. So what you'll get, like in lightning, you'll get a big lightning flash, then lots of little lightning flashes. But ball lightning, or what they call ball lightning, you get a constant. And the only way you can be constant is if the power source is artificial, because constant doesn't exist in nature, not in that respect anyway. So what's happening is that with the spheres themselves, they have a high energy propulsion system. It emits a high energy field around it, which energizes the gas molecules, which then produces light. So what you have is a silver ball, but the actual air around it is glowing. And then from a distance, all you see is a big glowing object, big glowing ball.
A lot of these are reported to have like a plasma sheath around them, some type of like a
Well,
plasma
it looks like plasma, yeah. It does look like plasma. But it is effectively just ionized. It's just highly energized gas molecules.
Now, I'm sure the audience is dying to see what these things could look like, what these things are, right? Let's get into the slides. Let's start to show people what these things look like, and probably how often would they get seen.
Okay, let's run through it. Let's see. So there's the intro.
There's your book. Where can we find it?
It's on Amazon.
There it is.
And I actually recommend getting the ebook because it's free to read with a membership. The black and white one is about £9. The color one's a bit more expensive because of Amazon's printing costs and stuff. But I recommend the ebooks actually just as good.
Awesome.
And you go into the paranormal stuff and the Sphere Network in this book?
Yeah. Also how to trigger it, how it's triggered, how it operates. All this stuff is like when I was growing up, I used to watch a lot of magic shows and stuff. And I used to try and figure out how they used to do the illusions. David Copperfield and all that stuff. I used to spend hours doing it. But once you see the first sort of slip of the hand and the first kind of, the thing they do, the whole trick opens up. And you start seeing other stuff. And it's exactly the same with poltergeists, the same thing with the spheres. Once you actually get through the first barrier, it just opens up like a kind of like a big can. You to see it, how it all interconnects.
Nice.
It's like that. Oh, there it is, Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminds me, dude, we're gonna plug the heck out of that website. But Garry Nolan referenced this weird visual experiment video all the time. This idea of count how many times a basketball is passed between people on the screen, right? Mm-hmm. And while you're watching that, a gorilla walks through the scene, and no one ever notices him because everyone's watching is so looking at the task, which is to count the thing. Mm-hmm. In fact, when people are told, "Did you see the gorilla?" I was one of the people who was like, "I did not see one, and I do not believe there ever was one." I had to watch it again to really be convinced. And he references a lot, like who out there can see this thing, who's noticed this thing. Is he hinting at your work?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we do have a Garry Nolan slide coming up here because I do want to dig into like how y'all got acquainted, right? Because both him, as Tupa said in the beginning, and Ross Coulthart have mentioned your work. Pretty big names in the field, but let's go ahead and continue. Or actually, wait, real quick. You do this website with another person, correct? Who is that?
Say again, sorry, quite catch that. Sorry.
There's another person who you run this website with, correct? Like your partner in investigation, it seems.
Oh, well, kind of. I mean, when I wrote the book, there's only one person who I knew of, who had done a test or a material analysis on spheres, and that was Steve Corbin. And he did the Mexico sphere, and he did a full material analysis on that. And that's actually in the back of the book.
Nice, that's cool. There's a Sphere Network. All right. So this was just like I saw in an article. This was some examples from history. Do you have any thoughts on these?
Yeah, these are the Type 3s. So the Type 3s operate in buildings. They produce like a dynamic network that spans across countries. They don't just use buildings, but they use anything like bridges as well, caves, tunnels, anything that really shields their electronic emissions and where they're kind of left on their own, out of the way. So what these things here, if you map all the most haunted houses in the UK, most aggressive poltergeist buildings, you'll find that they operate in lines and clusters, which are very of similar distance apart. And what it appears to be is these spheres are using a microwave-based uplink. So they're linking to each other as a dynamic network through microwave transmissions, because it's line of sight. So it goes point to point. In fact, when you look at the map and you compare it to, say, our own microwave-based long-haul relays, they pretty much look identical in their architecture. So what they do is they operate in buildings, and they use the buildings themselves to shield the electronic emissions. So most of the time, these things are dormant, and they just sort of fly around, but you won't see them. They won't do anything. They might just be even in your attic or your basement. In fact, they operate in one or two locations generally. One is the attic, or the other is the basement, depending on the type of building it is. So, like, if you're in like a wooden house you have in America, like the single floor wooden building, and you have like a basement underneath it, they will operate in the basement, because the basement is the most shielded part of the building. And in fact, that's why those type of buildings are the most active. There's one was called the Demon House in the US that Zach Bagans did. And that was one of the most aggressive poltergeists as well, because when these things are relaying or broadcasting, they'll commit actions to move you away, and people perceive that as ghosts and spirits and or evil spirits. But in fact, what it's doing is it's just trying to get you away from the emissions.
And now, is that by inducing like some type of like alpha wave or hypnagogic state into a person to where they hallucinate whatever they hallucinate?
No.
Or is it actually projected? Okay, what's happening there?
What it's doing is that these objects use a field-based propulsion system. All they're doing is directing their propulsion system onto objects, committing force. So if you commit that force onto a door, the door will open or bang.
Oh, they're physically moving things.
Yeah, or you can just throw stuff around. Yeah.
And there's a lot of videos of there's a lot of videos of things just moving, doors opening, rocking chairs just going back and forth.
That's right.
They're just emitting force on it.
That's it. And they're using scarecrow actions to move people away from high energy emissions. That's what it is.
And so these things, they seem to be completely aware of people, human beings, right? Their methods that they use are specifically to scare people and animals away, right? Moving something without something being there. Crazy. Yeah,
it's AI based. So they all have the same actions and behaviors all around the world. So the same poltergeist activity that's occurring in 30 East Drive replicates in other buildings in, say, in America. It's all the same. It all pulls from the same library of actions.
And Patrick, roughly how many cases with these spheres have you analyzed? I'd imagine a bunch.
Oh, quite a lot. I mean, 30 East Drive is the main one I go to because it's the most active. The reason why it's active is because it's a small building, and as a result, you can corner it. In fact, everything happens on a stairway and a couple of bedrooms. If you're actually in a big building, it's like a castle or something like that, what will happen is the sphere has plenty of room to maneuver. So it will do something in one part of the building, and then everybody goes over there to check it out, and then it'll go and broadcast in another. So it's a constant cat and mouse game. But the good thing about 30, where I go, is you can corner it. And from cornering it, you can then spot the patterns quite quickly.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and continue along. Boom, let's see, what do we got here? Oh, the Betz Sphere. Classic sphere in ufology. Let's just run this through real quick, I guess, and we'll talk about it.
I have no knowledge of how the sphere itself happened to be in the place where I found it. As I've stated previously, when I found it, it was on top of the ground. It was not embedded. I saw no charred marks, no big indentations in the ground. In fact, it looks as if someone had taken it and set it in the spot. But as to how it got there, I, nor anyone else I know, has any knowledge of this.
Type 3?
It's type 2.
That's type 2.
The type 3s are much smaller.
Baseball size.
Yeah.
So you got J. Allen Hynek right there. What I find interesting about this is that that's the National Enquirer hosting this like little event, and this is 1973. So like 3 years after the close of Blue Book, when things were looking very meek, and it's just interesting that these spheres do come up, and we'll cover it later in the slides. Like even Kirkpatrick's talking about them, but you know me, Tupa, that I say the National Enquirer was like a total psyop. So the fact that their hands are all over this,
yes,
I do find interesting.
Well,
but yeah,
wasn't there some funny business with J. Allen Hynek in this sphere anyway? Like,
yeah. So Patrick, do you want to tell us maybe about this? Anything particularly special about this one? I mean, it is probably one of the earliest, most famous ufology spheres, right?
Well, I mean, it has all the same behavior patterns and observations that other ones have been found. But what that one appears to be is the type 2s, and from what I can tell from how I modeled it out, is the type 2s that are the ones that are vulnerable because of their position in the architecture. So the type 2s will link from the type 3s in the buildings to the type 1s up in the sky, which create the V formations that have been seen all over the world. As a result, well, you got to remember this is a defense network. It intercepts other UFOs, so there's going to be weapons flying around. And if you know where to hit, where you will hit is the type 2s, which is what this is.
Yeah, very interesting. I want to go ahead and go through it all, and then at the end kind of see what you and Tupa think is really behind all this stuff. But it's interesting how much this stuff comes up. Let's see what we got next.
And it's rarely talked about. It's like I think it's the least interesting, right? Because we expect craft with bodies and aliens, and a metallic sphere is like, okay, you know, there's no lights on it. We don't know what to do with it, but it keeps on coming up. I mean,
yeah.
How long ago did you find the Department of
But here's some guy I found who was talking about something similar in the 90s. Do you know this guy, Patrick?
I know of him,
yeah.
Defense in the US? Papers just come out with Professor Avi Loeb to show that that we have some sort of super craft in the solar system that's able to deliver probes.
How long ago did you first say that?
Oh, well, it was 30 years ago, I think. Back in the mid-90s, we discovered that through patterns and cycles of UFOs that we could demonstrate a new model to show that there was a controlled autonomous surveillance of the Earth. So what we discovered was that they're actually using 660 orbital tracks around the Earth. These are not artificial satellite tracks. These orbital tracks are totally programmed to be in synchronization with the rotation of the Earth. It was all theoretical at the time, based on originally 30,000 reports worldwide we got from the US, France, and the UK. And then we whittled it down to about 1,300 reliable reports. These would be multiply witnessed or people that had taken recordings at the time.
Give us a description of what was recorded here.
Okay, well, this was in 97. 5 of us were here hoping that there might be an event occurring based on our theory. One of us got a recording of this construct just beyond the castle here. There have been many cases here in Lockheed, but I felt that was one of the best ones. one of the co-founders of ICER, which is the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research, made up of 13 countries, because we want to get it through to government officials. It's not only real, we're dealing with not a phenomenon anymore, not a big joke for the last 75 years.
So yeah, you got to link up with that guy, Patrick. I think he's in the UK too, it sounds like. But yeah, so what he was saying there, you found resonated with your research too, that
yeah. The difference is he's actually done it at an orbital level. Well, I've done it like in just an observational level with my own eyes and what people see. But yeah, it's a case of he's seeing that there is a deployment process and a retrieval process, and there is a pre-programmed network which is around the Earth. It's like a big net.
This controversial.
How long ago did you?
To hear him use that
This
language was kind of startling, right? The idea, like, hey, it's a programmed, something's going on. It's a surveillance network, and then to use those clips. I mean, every day, since we talked that first time, Patrick, I always see more and more evidence mounting, and I always wonder, how did we not notice this before? Here's a great example. This crop circle video.
Controversial film appears to show strange objects hovering above a cornfield. Below, complex circle formations appear.
They appear to be the Type 3. And all they're doing is committing their propulsion system on the ground, which is then causing imprints on the corn.
Say that one more time.
So they appear to be the Type 3s. They're the smallest ones that are like the size of a baseball. And what they appear to do is one of their tricks is that they're doing the same things what they do in buildings. So they're using their propulsion system to direct force or commit force onto an object. In this case, it's a field, where as a result it can then imprint messages or codes or whatever it's trying to do. But yeah,
what kind of messages do you think they're trying to send?
As far as I know, I mean, I found one with binary in it. And that's what I used to trigger the spheres in buildings. I made an app called the Ghost Code, which is now called the Q Code. I basically got this crop circle that I think it was a British mathematician. He decoded it and he figured out what language it was. So I just copied that language and stuck my own commands in it. And then I converted that into a frequency. And then I played that in 30 East Drive, where I know these Type 3s are. And within literally seconds, it all starts interacting. So you start getting what you call like electrical interactions. So you have like sensors going off on demand. You ask it questions, it will respond to you. And it's all on I got it all on video, and I've done it multiple times. And other people have done it and got the same responses. So it's everywhere. It's not just in one building. It's in all of them.
Yeah, very interesting. When I saw that your research touched on this, I was like, oh, it all is connected. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is interesting. The TTSA, right? So some of these big disclosure pushers, DeLong, Mellon, Elizondo, in one of their early promos, they used a 3 Orb Sphere video, which I just find interesting. Shouts out Project Unity for finding this one.
Yeah, that's the Type 1 beforming. And it works like it moves as a concise triangle as it moves around like that. It can flip around. So what appears to be happening is that Type 1 spheres use 3 points. They operate in that formation because you need 3 points of reference to target an object in 3D space. So by their very configuration tells you what they're doing.
They're literally triangulating on a target.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see back in the TTSA, Chris Mellon, these insiders reference this video. I remember there's an interview with Lou Elizondo where he talks about how sometimes the shapes we think we're seeing are actually, individual objects traveling in formation sometimes.
Yeah.
And that they'll create kind of a plasmatic kind of connection between the 3 of them, and it'll appear like a dark object or a one whole object, but in reality, it's just these three. What are your thoughts on the Phoenix Lights?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it could have been a cluster of type ones all in a big triangle. It could have been that. But then a lot of people said they saw a massive triangle craft. So
Yeah.
Unless I actually got a real good video of it, can I really determine?
Dude. Well, I'm loving these slides. Yeah.
That's interesting what you said about Elizondo. I wish that sounds interesting. I wish I would have found it, but he's basically talking about this exact same thing, right? From what you remember.
Yeah, he says that like sometimes like basically like, you know, the cylinder objects, the triangle objects might be you know, like an orb traveling in pairs. Now you have a connection between them, or it looks like a connection. It looks like a cigar shape. The triangle patterns that we see, you know, it could be three different individual objects as opposed to one whole object, and it just creates a look to it. And I think there's more than enough data behind that claim. At first, I didn't realize what he was talking about, but he could have been hinting to this.
I mean, what you're really looking at is energized oxygen or air, the gas molecules.
Right.
That's why you see the glow, and that's why the glow kind of bends and twists around. And that's why some people think these things the shape is changing, but it's not. It's just the energized gas molecules that are giving that impression. The actual object itself is just the same. It's a big ball.
And the ones that we're seeing here, those would be the type ones.
They look to be the type ones. Which ones?
These ones here.
That's type ones.
Now, type ones are about what, beach ball size?
Yes.
Okay. Type one's beach ball size, high altitude. Type two, basketball size, relay, and then type one, baseball size. They're in the houses. They have to be connected to everything else.
That's right.
The network itself. Okay. Now they work as an extension outward from 3 to 1, right? Or they don't go backwards from 1 to 3. Or is there a two-way connection?
So the type threes in the buildings are the underlying data network, which are using burst relay, and then they will then connect up to the type twos, which operate lower to the ground, generally a couple hundred feet, which then, depending on the distance between the type 3 and the type 2 and the type 1s, they might have to daisy chain along to reach the location. So what you might see is the type 2 here, another one here, another one here, another one here, and then you'll see a V formation at the top.
Right on.
Nice. Now, pardon me, this next one should not say TTSA promo, but this is from the Jubilee, the Queen Jubilee.
Yeah, that one actually looks to be a type 2, because the type 2s always fly low to the ground, and they can go from, according to the US anyway, they can go from standstill to Mach 2 in literally a heartbeat. So these ones will fly point to point where needed, and then they will uplink to the type 3s in the building, and then daisy chain or link to the type 1V formations.
So they're involved with paranormal stuff, but it also seems like, I don't know, this event, right? They're kind of, it seems like you see them at like around political figures and leaders often. Have you found that?
Well, it might be a case of they just happen to be seen because they're everywhere, literally. Or it might be also the case that some might just, like our own drones. I mean, most of the time they're run by AI, the military drones, but they can also be taken over manually and flown manually. So it might be the case of whoever runs the system just wanted to see the event as well.
This was them around Air Force One, I think like a year ago?
Yep, that looks to be a type 1. That's the way how big it is. Yeah. Now, actually, that behavior has been seen many times where they fly directly underneath the plane. It's almost as if they're doing some sort of scan on the plane itself, see who's in it or how many people are in it.
Now, are they interested in individual people or craft? You know what I mean? Like, have they ever been known to focus on a person? And if so, why?
I don't know about person particularly. I don't know about people specifically, but so in my book I describe it. So it's like the type 1 spheres will trigger when the algorithm detects an anomaly. So what it will do is it will monitor airspace, and then it will trigger when something's changed. In the same way as in our banking system, we have AI machines that will monitor the transactions on say a card. And then what will happen is when a spend transaction is unusual, it will flag it, and then that will go to security because there's been a change in the normal pattern. So what happens is that when there's air traffic that is out of place, these spheres will check it out. And in fact, that's why you see them a lot at air shows as well, because this unusual flight behavior lows to the ground, and then the spheres will engage it, or at least check it out.
That's interesting. Tupa, to your point, I know somebody who's fairly knowledgeable about UFOs, and they say one of their only experiences was they were trying some new weird breathing meditation thing with a friend, and then after they did that, like a metallic sphere was just hovering above them, probably like 300 feet, just like posted.
What?
Yeah, have you ever heard about this, Patrick? Like humans? Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I do have some ideas on that, but I don't really want to put them out there just yet. But it does appear that there is some sort of subconscious connection to it.
You know, I have a video. I'll find it on my phone. I shared it with a buddy of mine. About 2 years ago, I noticed I was on like a kind of a look. I was near a lookout, and in the valley of the lookout, right, of this like kind of hillside I was on is a small airport. But I saw hovering over it this metallic sphere, and from my position, it could have been a Mylar balloon, but it was moving to controlled. It was like up, then down, then right, then left. Like that was. So I have a video of it, of course, from a phone, and it's just like shitty. But I mean, I always wondered what that was, and then my friend ended up finding more videos of like, oh no, look, dude, they're all over the place. And I found this. I just kind of I just dismissed it as a Mylar balloon, but I'm gonna go back and check that out because.
Well, I mean,
very interesting.
What I kind of theorize is that not only do these spheres control access to Earth, they control access to space or to our airspace. So if there's something happening, say like an external threat is directly above an airport, say up in orbit or nearby it, it might actually shut down the airport to prevent air traffic.
So it's able to access our technologies and control it. Have you ever seen?
No. Well, what I mean is they will just start flying over the airport itself, so they won't take planes off.
Do they have any like defensive measures you've come across, like actively, I don't know, projectiles or laser beams or anything like that?
Not projectiles, no. But that event did happen over Heathrow and Gatwick at the same time here in England a few years ago, where these drones started flying over both airports, locking them down so nothing could take off. But then the military was sent in and they couldn't find anything. They couldn't find anyone. They found one person, but then they had to let them go because they couldn't prove it. And when you actually look into the details of it, it doesn't even match normal drone behavior anyway, because these things are up in the sky for 8 hours, while most drones can only last 20 minutes. Well, back then it was 20 minutes. So regarding weapon systems, well, the Type 1s are armed, yeah.
What are they armed with?
Well, they appear to be using high energy beams of some sort. All you see when you observe these things in the sky, you start seeing these flashes. So you'll see. I was doing some sky watching about a year ago, and I saw all these clusters of spheres come across the sky. Then they stopped, and then suddenly you start seeing a flash in the distance, and it's like, what's that? Because it's too high to be a plane, but it's this big flash, like flash. So it looks like they're like opening fire on something, and that's what it appears to be. Well, as far as I can tell.
We have this question from Space Snafu in the live chat. How about small red orbs the size of ping pong balls? We saw them as children in our house. My sister said they would talk to her when she would lay in bed. Is that the type 1 or the type 3? Basically, the baseball?
In the buildings, yeah. The red color is an atomic light. So it's just when you change a certain frequency, you can change the light that it produces.
And the talking to thing, you kind of alluded to it where you think they're not really ready to say the interaction with consciousness, but communication with humans. Have you come across that in other?
Apparently, I mean, I've had a bit of it in a way. Not so. When I was doing my tests, I would set something up, and then I would almost see like a flash of that setup, and then something would happen in like the next second.
Really?
But I haven't had like direct messages or anything like that. But people say they have.
Nice. Well, let's go ahead and continue along. Here's just another photo of the Air Force One. So what do we got next? Oh, so this is, I think, some of your drawings and diagrams. Maybe you wanted to speak on it, or
yeah. So what you have the back day, these formations keep replicating around the world every week. So most of the time we just see the Type 1V formations, which most people record. But when you have like more of a wide-angle lens, you'll notice there's two others as well. So the one on the left there is a Type 2. That's the relay. They relay down to the Type 3s in buildings. And each, it appears that they need one Type 2 for every cluster of Type 3. So one relay controls three spheres. So generally, when you have two groups of them, it means there's two targets.
So they can get multiple targets.
Yeah, from multiple directions.
They just daisy chain for real.
That's right.
Does the size of the target matter? Would they need?
So well, I mean, I would say the bigger the target, the more you need.
What's the most you've seen, or are you aware of anything that's used more than 6?
I've seen pictures which I have blown up and had a close look at, where there's just swarms of them everywhere.
We just got a question from Benno. Do the spheres need to dock to recharge? Who's operating them, us or non-human intelligence?
Well, it's certainly not us, because by the way, when you think about this, so if the Type 3 spheres are responsible for poltergeist activity, all you have to do to measure how long they've been here is Google when was the first time poltergeist activity was recorded, and it goes back to the 1st century. So these things have been here forever.
Yeah, and we saw those pictures or drawings from the 1800s that look like that showed them. So that was very interesting. All right, let's go ahead and continue along. Thanks for being here, Benno.
Now, if they're a defense network, does that mean that we weren't defended before they were here, or we weren't threatened before they showed up?
No, I think they've been here before humans were even created.
Oh, damn.
So here's another graphic of yours that really lays out the different types of spheres, Type 1, Type 2, Type 3. It says their sizes, their formation. So yeah, really good stuff, really interesting stuff.
So the interesting thing is, if you look at the Type 3s, it says here, during high-energy uplinks, actions to move people away, aka the inverse square law of radiation, which makes sense. So the further you are away from a building, the safer it is. And also, the thing is that it also explains another thing as well, which is spontaneous human combustion. So you say to yourself, okay, well, why are they making this diversion? What's the danger? What's the point? Well, if they're producing high energy emissions, which appears to be microwave and gamma rays bursts, then the byproduct of that, if you happen to be in the way of it, would replicate spontaneous human combustion.
Wow, that's really interesting. Wow, would you recommend then if people see one of these, maybe keep a healthy distance?
Yeah.
Real quick. Yeah, let's watch this clip, and then I want to kind of like map out how this network works, what would happen. I got a little diagram, and we'll see how if a UFO shows up, what exactly happens and what people should look out for.
Okay.
This is Garry Nolan hinting at this stuff.
Do you want to do your thing first, actually? Because I wanna press about how I want to dig deep into what Garry Nolan thought about this and what Ross Coulter thought about it.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So check this out. This would be like a zoom in on a house. So here, let's say we got T3s, got type 3, type 2, type 1, up in this area here. This is a zoom in on a building of a person would be in the mix. And here we have a UFO. So we got our UFO, it pops in. It's like right here. These things down here, these are the type 3s you say are part of this network. So they're always around.
They're always around, yeah.
Okay, some of them are in houses. This guy's getting poltergeist, right, as we speak. So at some point, the type 2s roll in because this guy's in the mix, right? So you have the type 2s pop in, and they are just supposed to relay. In fact, we're probably going to bring this guy. I don't know. So the type 2s just are here, and their job is to communicate to the type 3s. Now, the weapons system is the type 1s. And they show up in a triangle formation like, is it like this?
That's right.
Now you have the connection being here and here. And then something happens between these guys and this thing blows up.
Or disabled, yeah.
And if it's disabled, it just kind of crashes. And then we have...
That's right.
Then
you have an extraction process.
Do they emit a type of energy that like can be tracked by satellites? Like, could the government be like, oh, whatever these things do to take down that thing, could it be sensed by satellites? So then basically the crash retrieval program guys, if it crashes here, would be able to know, okay, look, something happened.
Most likely, yeah. Most likely.
So this is the formation typically seen traveling over like cities, right, and over places because they're doing their job. And if they're here, that means the UFO is typically above them.
That's correct. It's kind of like, in that respect, it would be more to the right because they are, if you can imagine like an arrow going through the center, yeah, about that.
Like that.
So as the object will be passing over, that will be tracking it like that.
Now, does the type 2 have to be like, if let's say the UFO is over here more. Now, what do we do with does the type 2 have to then move over here?
Yeah, it will move upwards. The type 2 is always in the safest point it can be. So it would be kind of like either lower to the ground, but it has to work around environmental topology as well. So the type 2 is commonly seen around mountainous areas, while a daisy chaining anyway. But generally, the type 2 will, in that situation, the type 2 will drop lower to the ground if it was a flat location, if it's flat on the ground, depending on, of course, where it's relaying from.
Interesting.
Great graphic, by the way, Tupa.
Yeah, I was a weather guy in another life. So then we have this guy would move over here. This guy would move kind of over in that. So now, is the point to have a direct line like that? Or is that just the way that their technology works?
It appears to be that's just the way it works.
Okay.
Yeah. So once it triangulates on that, the Type 1 spheres use 3 points to triangulate on a target in 3D space. In a way, it's like GPS, but in reverse. Like our phones would normally track three satellites to find our own location.
Oh, so
but in this case,
if this guy was way up here, then this would have to drop. That's
right.
Because it's okay. So you can always tell where the UFO is depending on the formation,
right.
Especially if the video, let's say there's video evidence, which we have a ton of, right? And these guys are in that shape, and they're moving, towards you, but then okay, this thing is somewhere. Okay, and it's tracking something. Now,
the distance, you got to remember, the distance between that and the UFO might be 20 miles or 10 miles. It's like our own, missile systems. They can fire for 20, 30 miles away. So these things will be real high up in the sky. but other times they're low as well. So it depends on, but it's the same process, same formation.
Is there a maximum or minimum distance between the type ones? Like, does it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because I wonder if they're like spread apart, if that means the object's big, and if it maxes out, they only have so much like distance they can go before they lose the ability to use their weapon, so they need to call in more back. I don't know. This is an interesting thing. It's like one of the best things we have in terms of like predicting behavior, analyzing the behavior of something, and trying to figure out. I mean, I know that everybody wants to know what this thing is, right? I'm sure I'd love to know what's flying these things and then kidnapping people. You know what I mean? That's interesting. But these guys seem to be the only clue when these things are around. That's interesting.
That's right.
While researching the spheres, have you came across any kind of like a an order of these things, like the UFOs? What kind of UFOs are like the most threatening, for instance, or which ones these guys typically shoot down?
Not really. I think they go for anything that's not on their team. I think it's prepared to go for anything that's not on their side.
So you think the orbs and the saucers are on different sides, right?
Well, if they're triangling on them, yeah.
And then we have this question in the comments from David Mende Karate. I woke up hard from a sleep paralysis about 16 years ago and found 2 dark orbs bounce from where I slept to outside my window. What do you think it was doing?
Oh, okay. So what I've noticed is if the spheres have to broadcast locally to you, they will either hold you in place or they will move you out the way. And there's a video I saw a while ago where a guy in the gym, and suddenly he got grabbed and pulled to the side of to the wall.
Yeah.
So what it appears to be is that they will force you out the way if you're in the danger zone, if you want to say. So yeah, that's what it appears to be. If like in his case, it sounds like they had to go into his house to broadcast or uplink. Then he said, right, keep him there, keep him there, kind of thing. Keep him out of the way. In 30 East Drive, a similar thing happened where there was a girl playing at the base of the stairs, and from my tests, I can track where the spheres are pretty much operating, which is in the attic, directly above the staircase. And what they did was they pulled her up the stairs into the bedroom.
Oh, wow.
Backwards.
So do you think they're monitoring everyone, or like, was there something that happened with David that like cued them in, or what do you think's happening?
No. Their main task, from what I can tell, is to protect the skies. So they will go wherever they need to go and do what they need to do.
Nice. All right. Well, should we get back to the slides?
Let's do it.
Cool. So after about what, like 5 to 10-ish years of research and stuff, right, you're starting to make headway, and then you start making waves with some of these big UFO disclosure pushers, right? So we have Garry Nolan. Let's see. Can you hear?
Can.
UFOs that they were
Really quiet though.
for.
So how did you get onto Garry Nolan's radar, and what was that like?
Well, I sourced the sphere that Ross did a spotlight show on.
How long ago did you
Uh-oh, messed up the thing a little bit.
This
1 second. But yeah, so it's from Ross, right? Okay, so let's watch the... what is it doing that? 1 second, sorry.
How long ago did you...
This
So let's watch the Ross things too. Oh man, hold on.
Well, the most interesting thing.
Thank you, Red, for navigating this on your phone. Red's on the road right now. Appreciate you, dog.
I was living in New Mexico, and a friend of mine, Dennis Hopper's bodyguard, wanted me to come out and see his house. It was way out in the desert, in the middle of nowhere. We went out there, and there was a pile of these spheres laying in his yard.
How many?
Maybe 6 or 7. I don't remember exactly. There was just a pile of them. And I was amazed, because I'd never seen anything like these. And what the heck is that? And he said, I'd tell you, but you wouldn't believe me. And I said, well, try me. And he said, well, Jim, I swear to God, a UFO came over my house and dropped these out in my yard. And he said, they've been sitting there ever since. And I was amazed at them. And he said, do you want one? You can have one. So I took it. Well, I've had it for over 40 years, so I've seen it do some things that I can't explain. I was laying on my back on my floor, and I was just mindlessly rubbing my feet on the sphere while I was talking to a friend of mine. And when suddenly there was this flash of light, and I was shot across the floor on my back. I was 6 to 10 feet away from the sphere. It knocked me that far away from it. You know, and there's no explanation for that.
You think that's alien technology, don't you?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
Damn.
So yeah, this is how you got kind of acquainted with Garry Nolan, because Ross did this piece, right? Did he reach out to you, or how did you get acquainted with Ross? And I guess is the first question.
No, I found the sphere itself.
Oh, you found it?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you find it? Walk us through that.
Well, I know because I've been studying for quite a long time, and I've seen quite a few of them as well. I know how they look, how they move, how their signatures generally, and I seem to have an ability to see the signatures of things. And so when I saw it, because it was actually online, they did like an interview. I spotted it, and I kind of went, okay, well, let me just get in touch and see what I think. And it took me like 10 seconds to see the signatures. And that's what it was.
Let's play another Ross clip.
Hell yes.
Might have dope. And was the coolest guy I've met in a very long time. Jim had this crazy story that he literally was, he was at the home of a well-known rock star in the mountains, and there was this pile of spheres lying on the ground, and his rock star friend told him that they'd literally been sitting on the back porch the previous night, and a craft had literally dropped them into the forest, and they think that the house was so hidden in the forest, whatever it was, didn't realize that there were humans there. Anyway, one of his mates said, you can take one of these spheres. And Jim claims, and I have to admit, we did see anomalous stuff with this sphere. Jim claims that this sphere does things, that it moves around on its own account. And more importantly, there's a history of such spheres going back to the 1970s, a family called the Betz family in Florida. And the so-called Betz Sphere used to wobble around the house and literally sort of go around chairs and then come back again. And it was like their pet, but it was a sphere. And I heard about this guy called Jim Marlin from a guy called Patrick Jackson in the UK who studies these spheres. Patrick has made a study and written a book about these spheres that he believes are some kind of non-human intelligence that is purportedly protecting the planet from unfriendly NHIs.
So very cool. You connected Ross with Jim.
Yeah.
Wild.
Do you know like a lot of other people like Jim? Since you're kind of, I'd imagine you're like the sphere guy, right? So if other people have one of these, have you gotten in contact with the other people who have these at home that maybe don't want to go public, like on a Ross Coulthart piece?
Yeah, you could say that.
Very interesting. Ashton Forbes in the chat my favorite orb expert.
Hell yeah.
We're definitely going to be touching on MH370 because, like, how could we not on this episode?
It already
And
came up in the
what's that
chat. But yeah.
Oh yeah. And then
Now what
look
is
at
this? Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch even has them, bro. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure,
Of
Patrick,
the
I'm sure you're not
cameras,
surprised by
right.
that.
No, not surprised.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Back that up. Yeah, back that up. What was that?
I'm just running through it frame by frame.
What?
Like a silver orb.
Didn't you see it? It was like some little quick flash there.
I saw over in this
Yeah.
area there, yeah.
Whoa,
Right there.
look at that.
So depending on how far away.
Close to the ground, that's a type 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Good job, Tupa. Heck yeah. We're learning.
We're learning.
That is.
And that would be the size of a baseball.
Yeah, I mean, if it's back at the tree line, that thing's pretty big.
It's massive if it's at the tree line.
Well, that gives us clues when we see these things in video and photos. You don't really know how to track it, but if it's low enough to the ground, it's most likely a type 3, which is baseball size. So that gives you an idea of where it is in 3D space of any photograph, which is great because scale and spheres are not known for being friends with each other. You don't have any idea how big a sphere is in anything outside of the reflection of it. But this gives us a clue. So this is like relatively... This isn't at the tree line like they're suspecting. It's, I don't know, 20 yards away from the camera. This is crazy.
Yeah, Peppery goes and says, shout out TJ, friend of the show. Heck yeah. And also I want Dragon on at some point. That'd be
We got to
fun.
get him.
But yeah.
Now, how fast can the Type 3s go? Is it traveling now or is it just phasing in and out? How does it appear?
I think they go from 0 to Mach 2.
Just like a bullet.
Just like a bullet.
Oh, I
These
saw
are the ones
you
in the buildings.
tweeted this out to Fugle, right?
Mm-hmm. This is the ones in the building. The one on the right is the one in 30 East Drive. Baseball size, hovering off the ground, and the other one is actually taking in that's an image of one taken in the UK in a field.
And 30 East Drive, that's the paranormal hotspot.
Yeah, that's the most violent poltergeist in the world, or in the UK, and some would argue the world.
Now, if that's the case, I mean, you might have already gone over this. Apologies if you did, but if that's the case, that means there's there must be a central point for the relay system there, just off chance, or there's a lot of UFO activity there. What conclusion could you come to?
So what you have, if you have a drone that is AI based, that needs a network and is producing high energy emissions and transmissions and receivings and data relay, then all you have to do is look at other buildings that are equally as active, and you'll notice that they operate in lines and clusters. So they're basically relaying along the chain. It's also why actually that haunted houses is like, especially with East Drive, the neighbors' houses are all active as well, but not as much, only a little bit. And it's because it's doing a thing called load balancing. So what you have, instead of just having a single route going through an area, you'll have a cluster of these spheres in buildings and in the area. And then depending on which one is the least noisy, or the fastest way of transmitting from A to B, it will do a signal redirection effect, load balancing. Because when humans are close to these things, they cause delay because they don't want to. They're trying to stop the emissions from affecting people, so they just reroute it through empty buildings, or mostly empty buildings anyway.
The amount of care that's taken to protect people from this is, you also have the fact that this is a defense system, in your opinion, right? So there's a lot of care for people, right? It's guarding us and all biological life, or is it mostly us? Like if we were to overlay a map of where these type 3 networks would be and human population, would we see, a correlation?
You see coherence, yeah. Correlation, yeah. I mean, you say care, but really it's just an AI process. So if you don't take the warnings, it will just do what it needs to do anyway. I mean, back when I was doing my tests, I wouldn't run when these things were going on. Like I would be like, things were flying down the stairs and marbles bouncing off the wall, and I'll just sit there waiting it out, you know. And then I start feeling sick, and I've got headaches, and I've got all these issues. And it appears to be I'm getting affected by radiation or gamma radiation bursts, because all the same effects I was getting and other people get, including headaches, sickness, and yeah, there's a whole list of them. You experience after there's a poltergeist effect. It's because of the emissions. And if you don't take note, if you don't just run, get out of the way, you'll just get a burst of it. And from what I hear, I mean, I can't prove it, but from what I hear, it causes Parkinson's disease.
Do you find they interact with animals as well? Also, Tupa,
yeah, well, animals don't like it at all. Animals will just bark and scream and run the other way.
And now here's the interesting thing, right? Everybody wants to give Kirkpatrick all this smoke, right? Maybe justified, maybe not. But he did say some things were anomalous, and it was these spheres, right? People like to forget that like, there was a point where he was saying, like, so this is from the Senate hearing that I believe was last April, where it was Kirkpatrick talking to like Gillibrand.
See it come through the top of the screen. There it goes. And then the camera will slew to follow it. You'll see it pop in and out of the field of view there. This is essentially all of the data we have associated with this event from some years ago.
Yeah, that's the type 2.
It is going to...
And if you carry on tracking the video, you'll notice it goes underground. Which
that
is
one
actually
goes underground.
consistent
Interesting.
because the ones at Skinwalker deploy from the ground.
So you think that might be where they're all based?
Mm-hmm.
Is that typical, deploying from the ground, or is that unique?
And the ocean, yeah.
And they can just phase through the ground. They don't have to or the quantum tunneling.
No. I think they just go into holes. I think, like in that video, they fly down a deep hole in the ground.
Now, these things would obviously be in like caves back when they were doing like the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff, right? Like, so other cultures came across these things. We see them in paintings all the time. Very, very strange. You got to wonder.
Yeah, and shouts out Corbell. He got this one. If you notice right there, it says UAP characteristics and behavior consistent with other metallic orb observations in the region. So look, there's Kirkpatrick telling y'all he doesn't know what this is, and it's similar to other reports of a very similar thing. So make of that what you will.
Red, wasn't there some kind of chart that showed that like sphere sightings are by far the most? They make up the most amount of sightings.
I think we do.
Yeah,
have
I think
that
it's
chart
around 50%, 54%.
Let's finish this.
It's going to be virtually impossible to fully identify that just based off of that video. Now, what we can do and what we are doing is keeping that as part of that group of 52% to see what are the similarities, what are the trends across all of these, do we see these in a particular distribution, do they all behave the same or not? As we get more data, we will be able to go back and look at these in a fuller context.
That was pretty huge. I remember when that happened, I was like, holy crap. They're talking about this stuff. He also talked about it at the NASA hearing.
Objectivity and analytic rigor. This includes physical testing and employing modeling and simulation to validate our analyses and the underlying theories, and then peer reviewing those results before reaching any conclusions. This is an example of one that I showed at the hearing recently. This is a spherical orb, metallic, in the Middle East, 2022, by an MQ-9. I will come back to the sensor question that David raised here in a moment. This is a typical example of the thing that we see most of. We see these all over the world, and we see these in making very interesting apparent maneuvers. This one in particular, however, I would point out, demonstrated no enigmatic technical capabilities and was no threat to airborne safety.
How are they going to say that when we just saw it barreling across the city like super fast, right? But it's still, I think people forget that Kirkpatrick said this twice now, 2 big public statements of like, and what did he say right there? We see these all around the world, and like Patrick and Yell said, this is what they see the most of.
Which is that's the Type 2s. So they fly loads of ground, and they will go where they need to go. And it's an AI-based defense network that is.
It's crazy. You're in like you're in the position where Sean Kirkpatrick is validating like your research, right, and your theories, when everyone hates him. But what did you think when you saw this at these hearings?
No surprise. I mean, I gave the diagram to a senator in the U.S. Congress about 2 years or a year before these hearings started. And then, funny enough, when they all start, they start talking about spheres.
We have about 2 more slides. Oh yeah, so this is from the AARO UAP reporting trends. Just some interesting data. Yeah, it just goes to show that like these are on AARO's radar, despite all the stuff people say about AARO. Like, I mean, Tupa, do you remember Kirkpatrick? These clips I just played, do you remember him saying this? Don't you feel like people like sleep on this?
Yeah, people be sleeping on Kirkpatrick. You know what I mean? Did he lie about the Skinwalker Ranch meeting? Yeah, a little bit. But they wanted something out of him. They didn't get it, so they kind of overlook stuff like this, which I think is valid for sure. I mean, he brought up the spheres, didn't know what they were. You know what I mean? People sleep on this. I think that's one of the reasons why people sleep on this theory at all, is because it's not the saucer, Patrick, that you're calling attention to. It's this other thing, you know? And there's a lot of evidence for this. All right, let's get your thoughts on MH370.
We had to get your thoughts on this video, Patrick. So what do you think of this video? MH370, I'm sure you know. Yeah,
I know of it. So when I first saw it, I watched it twice, and everything in my mind, the patterns are wrong. The way the spheres are moving, the way they're rotating around the craft, that's not their normal flight behavior. But also, there's lots of composite issues as well, which a lady, I think I mentioned before, was Chrissy or
Krishley or Krishley.
That's the one, yeah. She's noticed that in one of the frames or a few of the frames, the plane goes through the retinal on the camera, which is technically impossible. So to me, it is a CGI. But in saying that, it is a good one, and I think when you're dealing with these subjects, you see that the idea of government as a whole is just to keep things going. You know, the government doesn't want to cause problems in the world. Really, it doesn't. It just wants the markets to be stable. It wants no drama. So when you got all these people asking about MH370, what the intelligence industry would do is sort of give you a hint of what may have happened, but do it in a way where it looks kind of real, but when you really look close at it, it isn't. So what it does, it puts the public at odds with itself and start, arguing. It distracts, in a sense. That said, something weird did happen to MH370, and the fact is that there are spy satellites all around the area, all over the world, that probably did see the plane, and they probably knew where it's gone and where it happened to it. But the fact that there is a complete data blackout on it, and the only thing that is this very cleverly constructed. The video itself isn't well constructed, but the data behind it is. So it's very easy for people to look at some data that come out and go, oh, that is real, but actually the actual video isn't. So that's the kind of games that the intelligence community do.
Wow, that's a similar take as Sean Cahill had when Red asked him a question about this. He asked him, what did you think? I don't know if you're familiar with who Sean Cahill is, but he's a good friend of Lou Elizondo. So it's very interesting. He said, if it's a fake, it's very well done. And whoever made it had some type of insider knowledge about some stuff that it probably shouldn't have known. The average guy in his basement doing CGI, you know what I mean, in 2014 wasn't aware of anything like this. So I find that to be interesting that the government could have faked this as what it looks. It's looking like an intelligent community hoax that could be easily debunked. But like you said, the purpose of it would be to like, hey, something happened, but if you guys try to draw attention to this, we're just going to debunk it. It was a fake, but you know, you're not the first person to suggest that it could be a fake by the intelligence community.
I mean, if the video was real, then no one would get on planes anymore. You know, so these are the things that the government have to think about, and how it would affect global trade and all sorts of things like that. So the best option they can come up with is to produce a video that looks convincing to the layman, add a bit of data behind it to make it look like from good sources. But actually, when you really look at it close up, there are serious composite errors with it.
All
to
right.
the point of impossibility.
All right, now thanks for weighing in on MH370. I mean, it's interesting because it's, you know, metallic spheres, right? But I want to go over some more details about this if we can, right? Just what these things are, because I put a little baseball there for reference of size, right? So this would be the Type 3. Now, they're all spheres. They all have to be using the same like method of movement. Right, they all have to be using the same technology. They can all move very freely.
Yeah,
right. So
they're the bigger variants of the same technology. Yeah.
Okay, and so like for instance, we know that these guys can like quantum tunnel. Can all of them quantum tunnel? And that's probably how they're moving in general, right? They don't have any mode of propulsion. Are they just, or when they quantum tunnel, are they invisible?
No. They